When BioWare launched Dragon Age: The Veilguard, the game became a colossal, embarrassing failure for the studio, and this is something that I personally didn't really expect. Now, I didn't think the game was going to necessarily do good because of all the heat surrounding it in the lead up to the release of it, but I didn't think it was going to do this bad. And this is despite the fact that you can see critics were trying to prop up the game because it was pushing the message that they want. But as you can see from the Metacritic score, just users weren't having it and only having a 3.9 on Metacritic right now. And this is why I'm thinking we're kind of getting to the subject of today's story, because apparently now it's being reported that the director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard is actually out at BioWare. Rumor: Dragon Age: The Veilguard director quits BioWare after game's poor performance. Edmonton studio to be shut down. An alleged leaked email indicates that the game director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard left developer BioWare following the game's poor performance. On top of this, a rumor claims that BioWare Edmonton studio will be shut down. Now, this is just a rumor at this time. It says it's coming from a leaked email, but when it's an email that's going out to a whole company like this, I think it at least stands to reason that there's someone at the studio who's willing to leak that to some source within the media. And apparently that's what happened here. So I think there's some credibility to be had with it. The only question I think that we need to ask is whether or not Corinne Busche was left as director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard, or not left as director, but left following being director of Dragon Age: The Veilguard because the game performed poorly, or because he just wanted to do something else. Former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kern, aka Grums, shared an alleged email from the game director, a man who pretends to be a woman. It's funny how they emphasize that. Calls himself Corinne Busche despite his name being Andrew. In the email, which is undated, Busche informs BioWare staff that today is my last day at BioWare and EA. He explains, after so much contemplation, I've decided to pursue a new challenge and a new project doing what I love most, making RPGs. It wasn't an easy decision, as I mean it when I say I love BioWare, the Dragon Age team, and what we've all accomplished together. My time with all of you has been the highlight of my career. On top of sharing this leaked email, Kern also notes that BioWare Edmonton will be shut down. Now, I don't necessarily know where that information is coming from. I don't see it in the email here. Maybe that's just from another internal source, but I think it also stands to reason if an internal source is going to leak this company email, that they would also say, it's like, okay, we're also going to be getting the studio shut down, or the studio's going to be shut down, but we just don't have confirmation of it. But like I said, it sounds reasonable for this. And for people who don't know, like this points out in the article, Corinne Busche is a trans woman, therefore a man who became a woman. This is the account on X. So here you can see it's blocked, but you can see game director of Dragon Age. I don't know if he migrated over to Blue Sky with a lot of people, or because I know this has been privated for some time now. But one thing that we do know about Dragon Age: The Veilguard is, obviously this is the person who was responsible for a lot of the creative decisions in this game. And this is the kind of stuff that we actually saw within the game. I mean, I'm not going to show a whole lot. I know a lot of people have seen clips for this game floating around online, but this is just kind of a refresher of some of the stuff that was in the game.
To Tosh.
That's why we recruited her.
Actually, Tosh uses them for themselves now.
They asked us to let folks know, so now you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for telling me. That's why we recruited them.
Yes, that's very natural sounding dialogue in a fantasy RPG game, but again, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you can expect from an activist directing a game like this. I mean, it doesn't fit at all, but they just have to stop the game dead in its tracks to preach a message. And this isn't even just like a one-time thing. I mean, there's lots of different clips throughout the game that has this kind of stuff. This is just one of the first ones I pulled up right now. But one of the criticisms for this game, I mean, this is actually coming from Forbes of all places. Dragon Age: The Veilguard's clumsy, preachy political message does more harm than good. It's talking about how this basically just made it a kind of a central point in the culture war, about how people are going to target this game to not play this game because it's so overt with its messaging. And it also talks about how being so ham-fisted with the messaging just kind of alienates people who would potentially be more receptive of it. And I mean, you can check out this article on Forbes. I've made videos talking about this a little bit more, so I'm not going to really dive into it right now. But just suffice it to say, it was saying they were not helping themselves by having that kind of dialogue and being so over with the messaging in this. The director, that's pretty much an activist who insisted that this stuff gets included in the game, is also leaving the company now. So, like I said, I think it stands to reason that Busche was fired at the company, but according to the email, just decided to leave on his own fruition. We don't know if that's necessarily the case. We're never going to probably get a clear answer on that unless someone high up says otherwise. And I don't think they will actually come out and say, no, we actually fired Busche because the game sucked. That's probably not going to happen. So we just have to go by these rumors at this time frame, though. But like I said, I think it is a reasonable conclusion. But it could just be he wanted to leave because the company is going under, and it's like, I'm just going to try to cut and bail. I destroyed this place, so I'm going to try to move on and invest something else. That could be a possibility as well. So on top of Mark Kern Grums, he wrote on X, Corinne Busche, game director of Dragon Age of Veilguard, has left BioWare and EA. BioWare Edmonton, the Veilguard studio, to be shuttered. The farewell email was shared with me, and I verified her leaving with Smash JT's contacts at EA/BioWare. He continued, the rumor that goes with this is that the Edmonton offices of BioWare will be shuttered in February, so next month, just before the EA town hall for investors and gamers. It's sad that after completely destroying the game with DEI trans scars and terrible characters and writing, that the game director responsible for it all bails and leaves everyone else holding the bag. He added, these people often fail upwards through a woke studio system bent on promoting activists instead of great developers. Sad. So Grums thinks that Busche left on his own fruition and it is going to move on to somewhere else, just basically infects that and then rinse and repeat with whatever studio decides to hire him onto it. So, and it does make sense if they're going to get rid of this before an investors town hall, because obviously this is going to be something that they're going to have to answer to. So this game, like I said, lost hundreds of millions of dollars. So investors are going to want answers for that. If they're saying like, okay, we got rid of those people, we shuttered that studio, don't have to worry about that anymore, maybe that can appease them a little bit. I don't know why another company would want to pick up Busche unless it is like Grums is saying, where they're just willing to take on activists so long as they push the same message. And I think there are very much studios out there who are kind of inclined to hire people because of activists. I mean, we've seen that time and time again now, even though the industry is kind of shifting and we've saw gamers have rejected such things in a lot of their content. It's still not entirely gone away. There's still some studios out there because they're usually in, I would say, one of three camps. There's studios out there who reject this kind of stuff. There's studios out there who don't necessarily care one way or the other. They'll just do whatever they think makes them the most money. And then there's the hardcore believers in it. Some studios, they might, if they're in the middle where they don't care one way or the other, they might try this stuff to a point because they think that's where the audience is. If they try some games like it and it doesn't sell, then they'd be like, okay, well then we'll get rid of that stuff and move on to something else. But the ones who are the hardcore believers who will actually bring back on Corinne Busche and hire him to after coming off of something like this, I don't think those studios are going to be around much longer, because we've seen gamers have overwhelmingly rejected them if they have the overt messaging like we saw in this game. So I think it's only a matter of time before those studios are in kind of also shutting down or going to eventually get bought up by some of the studios who are just trying to make money. And those could be the ones who are against this sort of thing or who don't care one way or the other. But in the future, the ones who don't care one way or the other are probably not going to be including this stuff in their games because they realize it doesn't sell. And no matter how much BlackRock and other groups like that are going to try to throw ESG money out on to prop them up, there's only so much that they can actually spend, especially considering how much games cost these days to make. You can't keep a whole industry propped up on your message for very long. So I do think this is a good sign, regardless of whether or not Busche got fired or whether or not he decided to leave for greener pastures, so to speak. But the only difference is how good things are. I mean, if he got fired, then it does show that BioWare is starting to learn their lesson. If not, then I guess we'll just have to wait a little bit longer. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think he was fired? Do you think he decided to leave on his own? Or do you think he's still at BioWare and this is just all pure rumors with no basis to back it up? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.